What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 15 of Into the Necrosphere, my last one of the year. And what better way to close off the year than to count down my favorite 20 albums of 2019. It was a hell of a time trying to put this list together, but I will be joined very shortly by Giuseppe Cutispoto of Corpsing to help me do so, and I hope you really are going to enjoy this episode. Maybe discover a couple of bands that you hadn't noticed before, maybe find a couple of reasons to hate on old Jackson for not including the bands that you liked. But either way, hopefully it'll spark some debate, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. As a matter of fact, hopefully, I'm sure you will. Anyway, as I always say at the start of the show, if you like what I do, if you want to show some love and support for the show, then please do hit subscribe, share the video, leave a comment, leave a like. And if you are listening to this on any of the very fine and reputable podcasting services that host us, then do hit subscribe, and if the spirit moves you to do so, leave me a 5-star review, because that really helps the show. And I really do want to say, as we get to the end of the year, thank you so much to everybody for the amazing support that I've seen so far, the great feedback I've had. I want to say thank you so much to all of the guests that came onto the show. You know, it's not easy when you're starting off a podcast to get people to spend an hour or two of their time talking to you, and the most that you have to show as far as listener or viewership is concerned is your extended family. So, to guys like Nathaniel from Damn Him, Marco from Stellar Master Elite, Leorcifer, Jeremy Wagner, AV from Abduction, Sam Loynes from Akakaka, Jason from Akakaka, thank you so much for having the faith in the show to come on. Thank you for helping me put together some fucking great episodes. You have gotten us off to a flying start, and I'm looking forward to coming back next year. I will be back probably the second week of January, so I think the 7th of January. And I've got some great guests in the pipeline already, so I'm looking forward to what 2020 brings. I have said this before, I don't do this podcast because I want to make money or earn a living off of it. I have a job that keeps me very busy as it is. I only do this for shits and giggles and to entertain all of you guys and to have conversations with people that I find interesting. So that is what keeps me doing this. And I really appreciate everybody's role in making it worthwhile for me to keep doing this. I think that is pretty much it for me. This is going to be a long one, so strap yourselves in. This is Giuseppe Cutispoto of Corpsing and my best, or my top 20 favorite albums of 2019. Giuseppe, welcome back to Into the Necrosphere. Long time no speak. A whole one episode, I think.
Yeah, it's been about 100 years since we've spoken, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. Before we get started, I know you guys are in the run-up this week to prepping for the MOD show.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Yeah, no, we're ready to go, basically. We just can't wait to get up there, and it'll be the last show of the year, and just all systems go, just, ready to go bonkers.
Yeah. I after you and I spoke, I actually went back and I looked at what their set list looks like, and it is fucking awesome. I mean, they play United Forces, they play Kill Yourself, they play Speak English or Die. I mean, literally, there's like, I think about 3/4 of the show is just SOD songs.
Yeah, I mean, I saw. I think it was you sent me a set list, and it was like the first 5 songs are like MOD.
Yeah.
And then the rest is like SOD, which for me is brilliant. It's like it's the perfect combination, I reckon.
Yeah.
It's a nice celebration of both bands.
Dude, I as I said, I'm so pissed off that I'm not going to be there. But I have two things counting against me. One is it's my weekend to have my daughter, so I need to go pick her up on Friday. But as I said to you before we started recording, I've also in the last week developed a cyst on my tailbone, which I would have thought was the fucking dumbest thing anybody could possibly have. But it's got me staggering around like an old man here at the house. I'm not sure that it would be conducive to me coming out of Mosh retirement for MOD.
Yeah, that
But
might make, the mosh might make it worse, eh?
it most definitely will. So, anyway, we are here to talk about the best albums of 2019, and I have said this on the show many times, and I think I said it to you when we spoke. I am struggling to remember a year that, in my opinion, had not only a higher volume of great music coming out, but the number of kind of smaller bands or the number of newer bands that came out with just absolutely fucking spectacular debuts or, great sophomore releases, it's mind-boggling. I think, for me, if you're not, if you're one of those guys that's been listening to metal for a long time, and I've been into metal for the best part of, Jesus, I think probably about 30 years now.
Mm-hmm.
If you're one of those old guys that says there's nothing good coming out nowadays, I genuinely think that you're just not trying hard enough.
Exactly. The thing is, it's interesting because like literally every time I go online or, I'm having a browse and stuff like that, and it's incredible. Like as the years pass, there's more and more bands coming up. Like, and it's like, it's like so much. There's more bands in general, which is, I think, is so good. I mean, it's so healthy. I mean, across all genres,
Yeah.
whether it's death, black, grind, or whatever it is, and I agree. It's like sometimes to compile a list of your favorite 20 or your favorite 10 or whatever, it's bloody difficult, really. Because of the vast amount of bands, it's a good dilemma to have, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the thing what I see happening more than anything is the kind of blending of styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that especially in black metal. I mean, there's so many bands that are kind of coming out that are part of the black metal scene, but that really, they probably only fit the black metal scene by, virtue of the fact that they have a certain, set of lyrical themes or they have a certain look. But, I guess they kind of retain the vibe, but they've moved off into very different, far more experimental realms. And I mean, we're going to talk about quite a few of them on this list. But again, that to me is so exciting because I feel like black metal especially is a genre that continues to evolve and it continues to get broader in its definition and its scope, but actually much more exciting because of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's like, the whole experimentation thing is really good because, it just there's more variety. And obviously, when you mix with that kind of stuff, a lot of these bands that you've put on your list and those bands in general, it creates even, much more atmosphere in the music. It just like, you've got things hitting you from left, right and center, and that's really good. And sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, but that's the beauty of metal, is that you can incorporate so many things and I mean that's an absolute joy, to come across bands like this, which is amazing.
Yeah, and again, if we just keep with black metal, and again, it's not just black metal on this list, obviously, but you've seen the list beforehand. But Gaahl spoke in an interview a couple of years ago about what black metal represents to him, and he said freedom. And I think that's really, I mean, it's shone through in Gaahl's Wyrd, which is on the list, and I think it's shining through in a lot of black metal that's coming out nowadays. And that to me is the part of the genre that excites me the most. Is that freedom. There's sometimes the freedom isn't necessarily my cup of tea, but very often the bands that kind of embrace that freedom as a creative concept and a lyrical concept and a thematic concept, that is what's exciting me the most, because that's what's leading to just fucking fantastic music.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that's a really good thing that you mentioned about the freedom. It's like, when you're writing and stuff like that, it's like, that some people, like, let's say for example black metal, they're still stuck in the early 90s or whatever and stuff like that, and it's got to be like that. But times are changing, and the whole thing about the whole freedom thing, which I like what you were saying, is that it's like a thing where you just do what comes naturally, do what comes from the heart, just let it all out. It doesn't have to be this or that, just see what happens. And that's the way we approach, for example, in Corpsing. It's like when me and my brother write the riffs, for example, we don't have a set plan, and I've never sort of been a fan of that. I just believe in just writing and see what the fuck happens.
Yeah. Right.
That is a great thing
at the time.
And that's the beauty of music in my eyes, because it's, it's sometimes no plan is the best plan.
Yeah, I was going to say now, after you and I spoke, especially, I kind of went back and I re-listened to all the albums again, and I feel like even as far back as watching The Thinker, you guys really started to I guess embrace that crossover piece. I listening to that album, now I feel like it's probably a decade ahead of its time at least, and I think a lot of the the limitations that death metal bands were setting for themselves at the time, I feel like that didn't apply to you guys, and I think that's what makes that album so great. And everything consequent has been that much better for it as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, thanks for the compliment there, because I mean that's that was sort of like, I mean, I remember when I was before Corpse, I was in Infestation, which was like a head down pure death metal band. That's all we gave a damn about, is writing death metal. We were very inspired by the Florida thing and everything. But with Corpse, it was like, let's just go crackers. Let's just, let's explore. Let's see what comes out. Let's try different things. And because we don't want to, we never want to be stuck in one particular place, because we get really bored, and, when you're in that sort of position, it's like, it's really horrible, so, and sometimes, like when you're writing, you can come up with a riff, which is not, let's say, death metal, and then it'd be something else, but you can turn it into something very interesting. So that whole messing around stuff, it was very natural for us, and it's just always, that it would always be like that with us, you know what I mean? And that's what I like, that, the unexpected, what's going to happen next, so it's cool.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, right, so let's get started.
Cool.
At number 20, Enthroned, Cold Black Suns. So this album came out in June on Season of Mist. I'm personally kind of, having looked back at all of the albums that I've put on this list, because I sort of tend to, the way that I work this list out, I'll keep a sort of running list as the year goes on, and then I'll revisit. And
sure.
it's probably a lot more scientific than it ought to be. But anyway, I was surprised that the Enthroned album didn't get better reviews than it did. I mean, there's a lot of pretty, average kind of 2.5 out of 5, 3 out of 5 reviews that you'll see floating around online. Maybe my taste is up to shit, but I thought this was fantastic. I mean, I this band's been around for 25 years, and honestly, didn't ever really do much for me up until they brought out an album called Sovereign. I think Sovereign or Sovereigns in 2014. That's really when I kind of sat back and I was like, Jesus, I never expected a record like that. Yeah. And then they brought out the single on this record, which I'll play a clip of in a second. And that, I thought was spectacular, because I thought it was a great next step for them. They sort of upped the atmosphere. They really embraced that kind of mid-tempo, gnarly, kind of sort of grinding black metal that bands like Mgła and Uada do really, really well. And again, I personally think this is the best best album they've ever released. I mean, I know they don't have a single original member in anymore. Right. But the guys that are there, I mean, the new bassist, the new guitarist, they've obviously done a great job. I think Norna Guest, the vocalist, might be the best thing he's ever recorded. And for people that like the blasting and the brutal shit, there's still plenty of that there. Hosanna Satana, the first song, that's
a cracking song. That
I was about to say that's plenty fast. But I think well deserving of its position at number 20.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I gave that a go, I mean, the first thing that struck me was like it was like a nice combination of harsh and atmospheric.
Yeah,
they got. I mean, they can sort of like be like blasting away, and then it will just turn into something like, I don't know. They got these like varied sounds, and they like the whole atmospheric bits, like the more sort of maybe quieter parts and stuff like that. But their sound, I think, on this album is quite varied, which really appealed to me. It's not just like head down and blasting for like 40 minutes, which I mean it's nice, but this was quite a varied sort of kind of sound, and it was a very nice production as well, I found. So I quite enjoyed listening to that, and that Hosanna song, it's like a kick in the bollocks. As soon as you hear it, you're like, there we go, and it sets the tone. It's nice. It sort of gives you a nice sort of like, you've got to have a shit kicker to start off an album, I say, you know?
I agree. Yeah, no, I completely agree. You need something that sets the tone for what the rest of the album is going to sound like.
Yeah, because you want people to sort of like, you know, even if you've got like a big intro and stuff like that, the song that comes after, you want to make someone fall off their chair, basically.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I always thought first and second songs are the two most important songs on the album. That and the closer. And
Absolutely.
I think so if I think of a great example of where a band did that very, very well, Marduk with Serpent Sermon. I thought the song Serpent Sermon, in terms of a song that kicks off a record, it's fucking fantastic. I can't remember if they closed that album with World of Blades, but I mean if that was the song that closed the album, perfect song for closing it.
You've got to have a good sort of start, middle, and an end. You know, kind of. You've got to have a nice sort of like. That's why, like when you sort of do like a track listing, you know, you've got to have a really good look and, you know, in a funnier way, put yourself in the listener's kind of shoes. You know, you think, you know, because if you've got like especially if you've got a mixture of stuff going on, it's nice to sort of space it out. And I think what Enthroned have done on this is very, very good. You know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Right, so this is going to be a clip off of the new Enthroned album. The album is called Cold Black Suns, and the song, and I'm going to switch back and forth between the mobile, because I'm too old to remember this shit off by heart. You know, like in the old days, I mean, I remember getting a copy of Domination, and I mean, I literally to this day can fucking remember every single lyric on that record. Same as I can remember every lyric of Seasons in the Abyss, off of Arise. Nowadays, not so.
I'm the same. It's like even some of like, you know, in the last couple of years, my favorite albums. You know, if I say, "Oh, I like this album," and someone goes, "Oh, what's your favorite song?" And I'm like, "Fuck." I just can't remember most of this. I know what it sounds like, but I just can't remember the song titles because I don't know. Maybe it's age, you know.
Yeah, well, it is, man. It's because, you know, I used to spend most of my school days lying on my ass reading CD covers, you know, reading and rereading the lyrics, and then you look at the thank you list, and it's like, oh, I've never heard of these bands before, so they must be cool and worth checking out. And that's how I discovered loads of music.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a sidetrack there. This is a song called Silent Redemption. Right. So on to number 19. And number 19, now I can wax lyrical about the gentleman in this band, particularly the frontman, for ages. But number 19 was Strigoi, Abandon All Faith. I have a suspicion if you ask me in 6 months' time what my top 20 for 2019 was, I think this album would probably be ranked quite a bit higher. This, of course, is the new project led by Greg McIntosh of Paradise Lost. I spoke about it on the previous episode. It's the spiritual successor to Valenfire, and I understand. I know he had personal reasons for kind of closing the book on Valenfire. I don't really personally think he needed to. I mean, if you consider the fact that Paradise Lost did, Draconian Times, and then they did 1 Second, the difference between those two records is far more distinct than the difference between Valenfire and Strigoi.
Sure.
But I understand what he did. I think it's a absolutely spectacular album. It's bludgeoning old school death metal, but it's got a doomy twist when, if you're a fan of Paradise Lost and you know the way that Greg writes riffs, I mean, you instantly recognize it.
Yeah,
he's got this way. He's one of the few guitarists that can write a riff using two like single notes on a guitar that he just lets linger, and he just does it so fucking well.
Yeah, no, he's a great riff writer. He's a bit of a riff meister, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it. I think his vocals on this record are absolutely spectacular. I mean, as they were on Valenfire, and I think me personally, I'm a huge Paradise Lost fan. I mean, I'm probably one of the few Paradise Lost fans that, when it came out, thought that Host was cool. It's just, what I find so exciting about these guys and so enjoyable through all the years is that they seem to, no matter what they put their hands to, they just seem to be able to do exceptionally well. Nick's turn in Bloodbath was fucking brilliant. Valenfire has been magnificent. There has not been a Paradise Lost album, at least for the last 3 or 4, that I haven't thought was just fucking top notch. And this is no exception. So I'll turn the gavel to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what you were saying. I mean, it's very. This one's another nice harsh one, but it's got it's got that. It reminded me of that cool grind element, that Terrorizer.
Yeah,
grind element, and that really sort of shone for me on that. But it's got, like you said, the vocals are fucking brilliant. I mean, they're like everything is in your face.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I mean, it's got that kind of. I don't know if it's got that kind of like industrially kind of sort of feel to it as well. A little bit like the production. I don't know what it is in parts and stuff like that. That's what it sort of gives to me as well. Like that kind of like cold kind of feeling. But on the whole, I mean, it's a very, very good album. And, I personally think that would do well. I mean, it's more of the same from him, and it's like, it's very direct and to the point. So
what's interesting, though, is I know they interviewed him recently, and they were asking him what the new Paradise Lost is going to sound like, because they're busy working on it right now. And obviously Medusa, the previous Paradise Lost record, had a lot of the death metal stuff back on. I always had a sense that with him and Nick both in death metal bands now, Bloodbath brought out 2 albums with Nick on, and Valenfire has brought out 3. This is Greg's 4th kind of straight death metal release in probably as many years. I always thought that Paradise Lost might move back to more of the kind of gothy stuff, and apparently that is the case.
Nice.
He was saying that some of the songs sound like 80s goth, which I personally, I don't give a fuck about. I'm very excited about that. But the one comment I wanted to make as well about this record, and about Greg in particular, there is one thing that he does exceptionally well as a death metal vocalist, and that is the rhythm and the phrasing in his voice.
Yeah.
I have a big beef with death metal vocalists that don't understand the importance of proper rhythm in vocals. And one guy I think that does it very well is Glenn Benton. He did it especially well when he was in in the early days of Deicide.
Oh yes.
But you get a lot of other guys, and I find this, no disrespect to Europeans, but I find especially Europeans where English isn't necessarily their first language, they'll just kind of be content to sort of follow the same patterns, like
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me. Whereas as Greg, he's got a couple of moments here. I mean, I think on Carved Into the Skin, just the bit where he goes like, carved into the skin. It sounds so fucking cool.
Yeah, he wants to rip your head off, doesn't he?
Well, it's like his voice becomes part of the hook. Like there's already kind of like a catchy melody over the chorus, but then that voice and the way the voice is paced comes over it, and it just sounds so fucking brilliant.
Yeah, no, I think it's like what you're saying about the vocal delivery. You've got to be, it's very interesting. Like, the way people sort of like, for example, like Carlin and my band or whatever and stuff like that. It's the way the delivery is so important, and the rhythms as well, because that can make or break a song, in my opinion. Or it can. So that's a very important element, because you can have like the percussive singing. You sing exactly how the riff is going, or So I totally agree. He does that very well, Greg. I mean, he's like when it comes to the delivery of the vocals, he's top notch.
And dude, just a thought that just popped into my head: if ever there's a band that you guys should get on a tour with, it's Strigoi. That's the perfect band for you guys to support.
That would be cool. I think that'd be a nice mix.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great from the perspective of the audience that you will reach.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are varied enough to complement each other well. But you're also at the same time, like I said, you will appeal to a Strigoi fan. There's no doubt about that.
No, that was sounding like a nice little matchup there. I think.
Like I said, mate, if you can, if anybody's listening who's going to be putting together that tour, get Corpsing on the bill as well. I saw that I think it wasn't the last Valenfire show. It was the second to last one that they played at the Boston Music Rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who was opening for them, but fuck me, they were a load of shit.
Really?
It's that typical UK London thing where I remember in 2003 there was this band that sounded like Evanescence called Ellis that opened for Slayer.
Oh, right. Okay.
I just couldn't get my head around, why would you do that to this band?
Yes.
Everyone there was booing and throwing beer at the stage and calling them shit. And it's like, same deal. A couple of years after that, I saw this awful band from Brighton called Johnny Truant open for Anthrax. Okay. And, again, Anthrax has a certain crowd.
Yep.
They didn't like Johnny Truant. The funniest part of that whole show, it was at the Astoria, and you'll remember the Astoria would have quite a bit of an echo when it was silent in there.
Yes.
So right before Johnny Truant are about to introduce one of their songs, this one dude, just a random guy in the audience, yells out, "You suck and you're gay." And the singer of the band handles it in the worst possible way, like flies around. "Who said that?
Oh,
this song goes out to you because you might think I'm gay, but I'm not."
Oh my, a meltdown. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That reminds me of when I went to see Slayer many years ago. At the time it was still called the Hammersmith Odeon, I believe. And they had it was a Slayer headlining and a band called Mindfunk.
I know Mindfunk.
And they were opening for Slayer.
Oh, terrible.
I mean, as a band, Mindfunk, I actually had the album, and I thought in parts some of it was cool, I liked it. But I think they were the wrong band to open for Slayer.
Fuck yes. I mean, they were like almost like a grungy kind of band. They should have opened for bands like Tad or
That's true,
Alice in Chains or something like that.
But they got so much shit off the Slayer fans. I was like, I kind of felt sorry for them, because I was like, I understand why they took obviously, you're touring with Slayer. That's obviously a massive thing. But I was like, oh my God, every night you're getting this. I'm thinking, shit,
I don't get it. But anyway, right. Strigoi at number 19, Abandon All Faith. At number 18, an album that I know that you liked. So I might actually turn it on you to kind of talk about it in the first instance. There are going to be many words across, or many album titles or band names that I will potentially rape over the course of this this conversation. But Deathspell Omega's new album, The Furnaces of, I think it's Polynesia.
Right, I think I'll go with what you're saying because I haven't got a clue how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I'll have you talk about it first because I mean I know that you're a massive fan of it. So yeah, over to you.
Right. Well, for me, this is my favorite album of the year. Simply because I mean I just think this band, everything I've heard, they've done nothing wrong. They haven't put a foot wrong anywhere. They're like, I don't know, they're just something else. They're on a different sort of, I don't know, level or something. And for me, what I like about, well, this album and their style in general is that it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so moody, it's so discordant, and this album's no different. I mean, production-wise, it's fantastic. It throws you around like it's like they throw you in a cage and they're bouncing you off the sides all the time, and they're going from slow to fast to like very deep, and I just think they're just absolutely fantastic. This, you know, for me, I would describe them as like, I don't know, like if Voivod took a load of drugs, you know,
yeah,
that kind of vibe. And it's like, you know, and it's really fucked up as well. Like, I mean, the lyrical content is, you know, very, very interesting as well. But I don't know, it's just they've just got this fantastic vibe that they give off, and you know that's always on my stereo all the time. Yeah. I love it from start to finish. It's like a soundtrack for me, that band, you know. And I mean, again, I couldn't pick out a favorite song because they're all magnificent in my eyes, but it's very sort of like I don't know, it just speaks to me. It's just like so in your face and atmospheric. It's like, you know, it's a great an album that you could put on. For example, if you've got a long flight, that's your perfect companion in my eyes, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, they are at the tip of the spear as far as the French black metal scene is concerned, which, I mean, French black metal, if you think, you know, some of the bands that they have, I mean, Blut Aus Nord is another. Yeah. You know, there's this, they just have so many great bands, and then Deathspell Omega for me really kind of leads the charge. I mean, this is probably my favorite album of theirs. I agree with you. I don't personally think they've put a foot wrong. And again, it's one of those records that probably, you know, if you left me for a couple of months, it may end up being even higher. I think what I really liked about this record is I agree with you about the all over the place approach to songwriting that they have, but I feel like on this album they actually reined that in just enough to kind of add a bit of extra groove and therefore a little bit of extra ambience to a lot of the songs. And actually, in a bizarre roundabout kind of way, it made the album just feel much more aggressive. I mean, I know the vocalist. I can't remember the name off the top of his head, but I did read somewhere that he actually said that was the intent of the record, is for it to be a lot more aggressive. You know, and I think, you know, mission successful. It's an incredibly angry, visceral record. It really pulls you in, and I agree with what you said as well. It has kind of a cinematic quality to it. You know, you feel like you're going on a journey when you listen to it. I think it's absolutely magnificent. Yeah,
no, I think also it's I don't know, I do agree with what you're saying. It's like they are top of their game, you know. I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, of course, you know, they're like a black metal band, but you know, there's so much more, you know. And it's you know, they're one of those bands that's very hard to describe. You know, it's one of those bands where you just think, right, just stick the record on and just listen to it.
Yeah.
You know? It's one of those, you know, because they cover so many areas and atmospheres and stuff like that. So it's, you know, it's one of those where you can't sort of like nail it down to sort of like, you know, what kind of type of music that, like specifically. So, but it's just great from their albums from start. You know, they have a great start and they're just great all the way through. So, so yeah, always have time for them.
They are also one of the bands whose records I think work best when you listen to them end to end, which is going to make it very ironic when I say I'm just about to play a clip off the album. And tying into your comment about their lyrical content being very interesting, this is a track called "Splinters from Your Mother's Spine."
There you go.
On to number 17, Krater. I fucked this name up last week. I'm still not sure of the pronunciation of it. I said Venenair. Like I also said, start coming up with some fucking English titles. But anyway, from Germany, I did speak about them at length last week, so I'm not going to talk about them too much this week. But from Germany, making really interesting, innovative black metal that has been compared to Watain and Dissection. I personally think that does them a disservice. I think there's a lot more going on here than an average Watain or Dissection album. They got the melody and they've got the riffs, but there's a lot in terms of experimentation with vocals. I feel it's a lot denser and a lot thicker, and just a lot meaner. I think the record is fantastic. And a real win for German black metal, as far as I'm concerned. I know this was one that you mentioned to me. You had kind of caught you by surprise as well.
Yeah, I think this one was when I stuck this one on. What struck me straight away was the how good the production was.
Yeah.
But but it's also very, very atmospheric, and it's got like a very nice variation of tempos. You've got like the fast stuff, the slow stuff, but I agree with you. The vocals on this are fantastic. They really are, but that gives it like an extra dimension to the whole thing. But the overall sound, I mean, it's a very atmospheric album, which I don't know. I listened to it like a couple of times, and the more I listen to it, the more I like it. And yeah, I mean, definitely a band definitely to watch for the future, because they've got a really good sound, and and they like to sort of like mess around as well. So yeah, definitely thumbs up from me for that one.
Yeah, no, and the one of two releases of Eisenwald that's made it onto this list. The other one is a little bit higher up, but I mean, Eisenwald are definitely a label to watch out for. They're putting out stuff like this. I can see them becoming like an Apocalyptic Witchcraft or a Season of Mist, where generally speaking, everything that label puts out, you kind of take a step back and you want to, you at least want to check out.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Cool, but I'm going to play a track off of this right now called Prayer for Demise. Brings us squarely to number 16. Now, this was one change I made to my list. So the list that you saw had a band called Alone on there. I discovered the other day when I was re-listening to everything on this list that Alone came out in 2018. But I think it might have been the confusion on my side because I discovered it in 2019 on Black Metal Promotion. But be that as it may, it has been replaced because a record that I predicted at the time I would like a whole lot more than I liked it when I heard it first crawled its way up the list. Blut Aus Nord, Hallucinogen. It did take many listens and probably a friend of mine getting into it a lot quicker than I did and playing it incessantly whenever I went to go and visit him.
Right.
That just really made the record grow on me. But, I know this is a new or, what Blut Aus Nord regard as a step forward for them or a step in a different direction or a new chapter or whatever they want to refer to it as. But I think that, it's an incredibly interesting chapter. And I'm curious to see how they build from here because I can see, you can see with all of their records, they kind of seem to write in trilogies. They had the work that transformed God, and then everything else kind of followed, or the next two albums followed a similar route. I can see them kind of being able to pull a lot more out of this than they have. And one of the things that I really like about this record, and I think that they do really well, I did when I spoke about the album a couple of months back. I said they remind me a bit of Nachmistium in the sense that they will take a single riff, or they'll take a groove or a sequence, and they'll repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and then just start putting all these little subtleties on top of it. It's almost like you're kind of switching the one track on, maybe 2 tracks on, 3 tracks on in the studio. You've got like 60 tracks recorded. You start by playing 10, and then you carefully start layering them on top of each other, and it makes for like a very hypnotic listen. And I think where my mind was really turned with this is I listened to this on the flight back from San Francisco to the UK. And I probably had it on for about 10 hours straight, and must have fallen asleep midway through as well. But it's just one of those albums that just the more you listen to it, the more it sticks with you, and the more it kind of burrows its way into your bones. But I thought it was fucking magnificent. I don't know how much time you spent with it.
Blut Aus Nord. I mean, one key word that you mentioned was the hypnotic element.
Yeah,
they're masters at doing that. With the layering and stuff like that. I mean, I've with that particular album, I've had like little snippets, but not enough to sort of give a lot of proper opinion. But they're definitely another band. Like, obviously they're sort of like in the same kind, not sort of same vein as Deathspell Omega, but they're that variety, let's say, and they're always very, very interesting. And it's another band that when that band like that release an album, you go and check it out. It's one of those bands where I think, right, they've just released that album, I've got to go and check it out, because you're going to get quality straight away. It's one of those bands that they will say, same as like with me with Deathspell Omega or certain other bands, you think as soon as you hear, oh, there's a new album out, you go and check it out. But yeah, I will definitely have a blast on that. But yeah, they're a fantastic band,
Cool. So number 16, Blut Aus Nord, and the clip I'm going to play is of a track called Sibelius. moving on. So at number 15, a band I have recommended to many, many folks. And I've generally, had a lot of people come back and go, that is fucking incredible. It's a band from Colorado called Murk Rider. And the album is called Exile of Shadows. The best way that I can describe Murk Rider is if you imagine High on Fire got together and made a black metal album. That's exactly what it would sound like.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Long songs, really kind of filthy guitar playing, kind of almost like a stoner doom approach to riff writing, but with this incredibly dark black metal atmosphere layered on top of it. And it just, like on paper, you would think maybe it doesn't work, but Jesus Christ, they do a fucking fantastic job of it.
Yeah, no, I think the word murky, it sounds really murky, doesn't it? The album, it's, but it's true. It's like, I do agree with you. You explained it very well. It's like that kind of, that stonery cut, but then, obviously, it's like you made a drink and you put stoner with like a black metal, and then you just, gives it a shake, and that's what's come out.
Yeah.
But they've got a great sound, a very great sound, and it's got like that, that really naughty riffing, which I particularly like, and it's just like, heads down, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and a band who as yet are unsigned, and I have no idea how that's even possible. I mean, I genuinely can't understand how I would imagine somebody like Southern Lord, maybe, or $20 Spin or someone like that would sign these guys up in a fucking flash. But anyway.
Yeah, Apocalyptic could be a good one for them.
Yeah, well, I mentioned it to Connor. I don't know whether he's checked them out yet, but I totally agree with you. They're the sort of band that's unique enough to suit Apocalyptic Witchcraft really, really well.
Definitely.
But anyway, Murk Rider at number 15. The album is called Exile of Shadows, and this is a clip off of a 28-minute epic called Journey. right, at number 14, a band from Germany called Impavida. The album is called Antipode. Now, I first actually checked this out because Impavida are on Van Records, and Van Records happens to be the home of one of my favorite bands of all time, Ruins of Everest.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw this was on there, I kind of wanted to listen to it simply for that reason. I was like, if there's anything that even comes close to what Ruins of Everest did on their previous record, then I definitely want to check it out. But this is definitely not the same as Ruins of Everest, but I think in terms of scope and atmosphere and intent, I actually think it's not entirely dissimilar. This is atmospheric, very uniquely performed and written black metal, with a very kind of stark, almost horror kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's essentially kind of two really long songs flanked by two really short songs. The first track, the demon's eerie flutes accompany the decay of corpses defiled. I mean, that is definitely one of the fucking most hilarious song titles I've ever heard.
That's close as that's nearly as long as one of Nile's, isn't it? Or something.
Oh yeah. Well, the next one, or the third track, the first flame initiates the cleansing of putrid terrestrial spirits. And we'll probably play a clip off of that in a second. But I don't know whether you paid any attention to this, but I thought this was magnificent.
Yeah, the Impavida, the first thing I wrote down was it's got that vibe where it sounds like it's been recorded in a tunnel or a cave.
Yeah, it does.
I
thought the first thing you were going to write down is I'm afraid.
that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got that, that kind of production where it's like, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's got that distant sound to it, but it's not.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's very atmospheric, nice mellow interlude. It's got a harsh yet mellow atmosphere to it. That's what I sort of liked about it. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. It's got that. I love the production, that kind of, where are they kind of production, that kind of vibe. Yeah. So that was a nice sort of discovery,
Awesome. So we're going to play that clip very shortly. This is off of the new, or the Impavida debut. The album is called Antipode, and I'm not going to repeat the fucking song. This is a clip of that album.
Neither am I.
We move on. At number 13, if you weren't afraid of Impavida, this will fucking scare the shit out of you. Lord Mantis, Universal Death Church.
Right.
They released a couple of singles off of this. I think they brought out Qliphotic or Qliphotic Alpha and a song called Damocles Falls. And I thought when I heard the Qliphotic Alpha song, I was like, holy shit, this is some of the most fucking nasty, intense, just evil stuff I have heard in a very, very long time. And immediately I was like, I have to hear the rest of this album. And then I of course, found out that the Charlie from Cobalt is on this record. I am an extraordinarily big Cobalt fan. I would go as far as to say not fan, nuthugger.
Right.
but hearing the rest of the album, I was not disappointed. I mean, this is just filthy fucking, violently played, violently produced. There's just nothing beautiful about this record from start to finish, and I absolutely fucking love it for it. I think it's magnificent. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was the opening track. I think the opening bit was like, that was another one where you got that sort of cave vibe as well.
Yeah.
When it opens up, and then, I mean, my favorite track on this was Flesh World.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's just horrendous, but in a lovely way.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to what you and I have said before. It's one of those things where it's a very fine line. Like I want to be convinced by everything I'm hearing. Like I want to be convinced that whatever this person is singing about, they 100% believe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I know it's like seeing Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. You see, a fantastic actor who completely convinces you, but in the back of your mind, he knows what he's doing. Yeah, this is not 100% him.
Yeah.
Lord Mantis is kind of like that to me. Like they are completely convincing, but then at the same time, you almost maybe consciously have to remind yourself, okay, the guy isn't this fucking psychotic. But yeah, I think it's brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great album, that one.
How long before Cobalt release a new album, I do not know, but I hope it'll be sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, Lord Mantis, Universal Death Church, and I'm going to play my favorite song, Qliphotic Alpha. The groove on this alone will fucking knock years off your life if you listen to it. There you go. up to number 12, Kampfar, Ophidion's Manifest. Kampfar, in a weird way, is a little bit like Enthroned to me. So they were a band that I didn't really pay a huge amount of attention to. I always saw as kind of a second or third tier band. And then their last couple of records, they've just increasingly begun to impress me. And then on this album, they just kind of seemed, and I might be wrong, and it might be one of those things where if I go back and revisit the entire discography, I'll be blown away. But it just feels to me like this was the record that they came into their own in a way that I'd never heard them do before. Yeah. I feel like this album is a lot more considered, a lot more well thought out than any of their previous records. There's a much greater focus on songwriting and songcraft. Everything sounds really, really. Every song is very self-contained and very unique. Mm-hmm. Fantastic atmosphere, incredible production. Again, it's an album that's hard to fault. I think it is. I think it's the best thing they've ever done.
I mean, the first thing I'll write down, like, the main thing I wrote down was like amazing atmosphere. Yeah. Because it's like, and we were saying about the songwriting, you can tell they really put, they've constructed a fantastic album, and it's the way it's written, it's very well spaced out, and it's great from start to finish. You could put that on and it was like, another one you take traveling, you stick that on, the train journey will seem great, and it's got a lot going on. I mean, the atmosphere is great. Production, very nice. But yeah, I mean, I saw a couple of live clips of theirs, and that was really cool to watch. But yeah, I'd love to see them live.
I was about to say they're one of the few bands I've never, I like bands I like that I've never seen live. I mean, I've seen anybody and everybody, but never caught them. So I will definitely, I'll join you for that, mate.
Absolutely.
But yeah, great work from a great group of Norwegian bucks. I'm going to play a track called Ophidian, which again I think is one of the best on the album.
Feeling the grave. keep on rolling. Fears persist, returning hate for hate. The serpents as they keep on rolling, with the surface licking flame as they keep on
Right, 11, Call of the Void, Buried in Light. I am so fucking pissed off that this band broke up after this record because,
Oh, right.
I mean, they brought out 3 absolutely spectacular albums on Relapse, and I remember hearing them the first time and going, man, this is like, this band is just, it's kind of like if Burned by the Sun had a child with Caius.
Bloody
It's
hell.
You know, I think maybe that's reaching a little bit, but you know, you know what I mean. It's like you have all these like really stoner doomy parts, and then just this insane like anger and like not even hardcore. It's like it's just pure sort of power violence.
Yeah.
And then you know they brought out one great album after the other, completely peaked with Buried in Light, and then gone.
Right.
They did they just suddenly announced they're breaking up, and that's that. They've sold out all their T-shirts, and once in a while they still post, but I could never get my head around it. Why would you break up when you're at such a peak? But you know, then again, maybe maybe that was the point. But you know, if you are a fan of aggressive music. Or if you think you've heard aggressive music and you've not heard Call of the Void, it is time for you to check it out. What did you think of this?
Well, I mean, I you know, before I'd listened to this, I'd never heard of them before, and but you know, I mean, the first thing I wrote in, you know, here was like, so, straight in, no mucking about, you know.
Yeah.
They just they don't mess about, and it's like it's a lovely mix of. You got blast, breakdown, hardcore riffing, you know, a nice sort of like screamy, shouty vocals going on. It's like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Again, you know, like a nice sort of like Terrorizer kind of vibe at times as well. The drummer's a fucking beast.
Nuts, absolutely nuts. And I'll tell you what else this band does extremely well. Groove. I mean, they're so good at kind of bringing in a breakdown or you know, starting a song off with a groove. The song I'm going to play is a song called "The Master," and the opening bit, as you'll hear, and as I know you heard when you listened to this record, it's kind of got this sort of, you know, this chug, and there's like a gang vocal where this guy's yelling, "I am enlightened." It's just
brilliant,
amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it's such a small tweak, but I haven't really heard a band do something exactly like that. I mean, Jesus, for years. And again, it shows that you can take probably quite a sort of narrow creative stage, if you will. And just by making a few small changes to the way things are normally done, you can come up with something that sounds really fresh and interesting and unique.
Yeah, I think this band gave me the vibe of, do you know a band called Dim Mak?
Yes.
It kind of, you know, doesn't make me remind them strictly of them, but that kind of vibe, you know, because Dim Mak were like messing about as well. They were doing like the breakdown stuff and then the blasting, and it's like they're reeling you in, you know, they're going fishing and they just reel you in, and it's like like bang, you know, it's like it's fantastic. That was such a shame they split up, you know.
No, massively so, because I would have loved to have seen these guys live. I've seen clips of them, and if you go on to the Relapse website, you can see some clips of them. I mean, they look like they fucking lose their minds on stage. I don't know whether maybe they broke up because of you know, health issues. It's they were like, look, if we make another album like this, we might not see our 40s in not in wheelchairs. But anyway, sad news about them breaking up, but they left us with a fantastic swan song. So off of Buried in Light, this is Call of the Void with a song called The Master. Number 10, I had Johan, the drummer from this band, on the show. The band is This Gift is a Curse. The album is called A Throne of Ash. Now, I know I went on and on about how brutal and aggressive Call of the Void is, but I think This Gift is a Curse kind of matches them for anger and aggression, and then they throw in sort of that added layer of Swedish black metal atmosphere as well. And I would also say, I don't know whether you have seen or can recall off the top of your head what the album cover looks like, but it is, if there were if I had a category on the show or anywhere else for album cover of the year, it would definitely win. I think the album cover, when you see it, it's like this dude who's sitting in some sort of satanic circle with goat horns and a skull next to him.
Oh, right. Okay.
But the way that it's presented almost captures the feel of the record perfectly. And I think the record is dark, it's sinister sounding, it's atmospheric, all of it at the same time, and it's kind of it sort of unleashes hardcore punishment through black metal voice.
That's a bloody good description right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I like this a lot because the production I really like, very interesting production actually, but it kind of creates this really like cold vibe.
Yeah,
it's got that really sort of like that cold harshness kind of thing, and it's basically again nice screamy shouty vocal, foot down all the way as well. It's one of those that I really liked it. I mean. But it's like that. The production really sort of struck me like quite a bit, and it was that kind of like cold, kind of like that got that old school kind of maybe Swedish kind of element, that kind of. But yeah, a very good album. Great band name.
Awesome band name. And you know what the craziest thing is? So firstly, anyone who's seen the interview I did with Johan, it is so bizarre speaking to him because he is one of the nicest people I have ever come across in my life. Like he's almost so nice. You're like, do you swear? Do you, there must be something to you. Like, but I mean, he's the sort of dude where, you could probably take him round to meet your mum and she'd think he's the loveliest person on the face of the earth. And she'd be glad you've forsaken your other friends and your wayward past to hang out with people like this. But he didn't play double bass until he played double bass on this album.
Oh, really?
He always yeah. If you listen to all the previous albums, they were recorded with him using a single bass pedal. And then apparently the band kind of started hinting at it and started like going, "Wow, look how much that one costs." Listen to how great this part of these guys' album sounds, and they sort of cajoled him into using it. But yeah, I mean, album's better for it. I'm going to play a track called "Monuments for Dead Gods." I could probably easily have played, any song of this album, but absolutely fantastic. This Gift is a Curse, and the album is called A Throne of Ash. we're up to the business end of things now. So I'm just going to very quickly summarize again. So at number 20, we had Enthroned, Cold Black Suns. At number 19, Strigoi, Abandon All Faith. At number 18, Deathspell Omega, The Furnaces of Palagnesia. Number 17, Krater, Venenair. Number 16, Blut Aus Nord, Hallucinogen. Number 15, Murk Rider, Exile of Shadows. Number 14, Impavida, Antipode. Number 13, Lord Mantis, Universal Death Church. Number 12, Kampfar, Ophidion's Manifest. Number 11, Call of the Void, Buried in Light. Number 10, This Gift is a Curse, A Throne of Ash. And now at number 9, another Into the Necrosphere alumni, Abduction, All Pain as Penance. I had AV on the show, and he was one of the people, like, you know, much like you and pretty much everyone I've had on this year, that I kind of sought out and asked to be on because I was interested in the stuff that they did. What I was most blown away about is that he did most of this record the recording of this album took him about a day, and he did all of the vocals after work. Right. Like over the course of a week. Brilliant. It's like he takes this sort of throwaway approach to it. I don't actually think, like, when you speak to him, I don't know whether you've actually seen the interview, but when you talk to him, I don't actually get the impression that he realizes how fucking fantastic this album is. Mm-hmm. He just sort of sees it as, you know, I don't know if it's something that he feels like he just needed to get out and, okay, I'm moving on to the next thing. But I genuinely got the impression talking to him that I don't think he knows how good this record actually is. If this album had come out 20 years ago, people would have said it's one of the greatest black metal albums of all time. I think it's one of those albums that it shows enough reverence to the old school, to be accepted by people that you know tend to be stuck in, you know, everything often in the Nightside Eclipse is shit. But it's you know, it's got enough kind of modern touches to it to make it super interesting as well. And there's kind of an English twist to it. Mm-hmm. It just makes me fall in love with the album every time I listen to it.
Yeah, it's got also like a cool mix of slow and fast across the whole thing. And there's one track, what's it called? Ultra Terrestrial. Yeah, which is really, really cool, and it's got that kind of really nice Emperor vibe to it. Yeah, but not ripping them off, if that makes sense. You know, it's got that nice vibe, you know, like that. I mean, I'm talking more like early Emperor kind of stuff going on. Yeah. But in general, that's a good find. That is. I think what you're saying about the gentleman you're talking about, for him, it's probably like another day at the office. You know, doesn't realize how good it is. It's just like, it just came out. You know, but no, very, very good. That, you know, it's a nice, like I said, you know, it's got a very cool sort of old school and a bit of modern in there as well. So it's a nice mix up, I think.
And you are absolutely right, by the way. Like in terms of it has an old school sound, but it doesn't sound like it's ripping anybody off. It's just that very subtle tip of the hat to a lot of the older bands, and then he kind of goes on doing his own thing. But I think he's fucking awesome, and I really am looking forward to what he does next. I know he has stuff already written, the main reason I listened to this was because it was an apocalyptic witchcraft. And it was like, ever since Antichrist Imperium came out, I'm more or less, if something's on apocalyptic witchcraft, I'll immediately listen. Yeah. And I was not disappointed. Okay, so we'll go with your favorite song on this one, Ultra Terrestrial.
Cool.
we move on. Number 8, Rotting Christ, The Heretics. I have literally only one issue with this album, and that's the last song, The Raven. I don't like fucking spoken word bullshit in music. There are very, very few bands that can get away with it. Any other time, it just sounds lame to me. It sounds like something that comes off a Cradle of Filth album or a band who want to sound like Cradle of Filth.
Yeah.
It's always done by somebody who's got a foreign accent who is trying to sound either American or English.
Yeah.
I find it fucking cringeworthy. And also, I'm telling you right now, another thing that needs to be laid to rest in black and death metal. I don't give a fuck how great the writings of Edgar Allan Poe were. I never want to hear about it ever again. It's literally, it makes me sick to my stomach when people start singing about it. Because all I see are a bunch of fucking nerds playing live action role play or something out in the fields in Sweden. Now, as much as I'll park that hate for now because the rest of the album is fucking magnificent. I mean, it's classic Rotting Christ. Yep. They never really fuck up. In the last, how many records have they made now on the bounce that have just been absolutely top notch? And they yes, a lot of people are saying, the formula is getting a bit old. I don't really think so. I've met Sakis before, and if ever there's a guy who's serious about being a great performer on stage and being a great musician and and just writing great music and really loving what he does. Yeah. There's very few guys I've met that is as passionate as what he is. So I thought another winner for them. It would, had it not been for the Raven, it would have scored. It would have been much higher on the list.
No, definitely. I think this. I agree with you. It's a very good album. It's a good all round. Obviously their style. Everyone knows what they do, and and they're very, very good at it. Yeah. But yeah, for me in general, it was a cracking album. And what you were saying about the spoken word stuff. The only time I think you should do spoken word is if the great Christopher Lee's bloody speaking.
Yeah. Something like that. If it's something unique and interesting, yes, I don't want to hear anything else.
Exactly, but I'm a bit sort of funny about this whole spoken word thing, especially when they're trying to sound, it can get a bit sort of tame, I'd rather prefer like another song, like people were just fucking going for it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
But this album, very good. I'm not surprised, everyone's raving about it because it's a good all-round metal album.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Right, so off of The Heretics, this is a track called The Voice of the Universe.
Salam el Kaun.
selection number 7, Mgła, Age of Excuse. This would have been way higher on the list, but I mean, it was just so difficult picking between these top 7. When I first heard this, I thought there's a very, very good chance this was going to be my favorite album of the year. But yeah, like I said, just the only reason it's not is because of unbelievably strong competition. But, you know, the aspirant Polish masters, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, and again, how fucking nuts is the Polish music scene at the moment? To where, for me, I mean, I like Behemoth, but I don't really see Behemoth as they're not in the same category to me anymore as Mgła or Outer, or I mean, I'm trying to think of other bands that come to mind from there now, but those are the two that I that stand out that I like most. But I mean, there's Blaze of Perdition is another one. There's a bunch of others, I'm sure, but I mean, Mgła on this record, they've just taken the aggression, the vibe, the energy has just gone to a totally different place. And again, they're one of the bands I've not seen live yet that I really want to see live, because you know, the clips I've seen on YouTube just looks phenomenal. But magnificent, absolutely magnificent record. Yeah,
for me, I think this is another album where it's like a sound. It could easily be a soundtrack.
Yeah, you know? Totally agree.
It's one of those where it's a good, like, I've mentioned it loads of times, but it's like a nice traveling album. You put that on from start to finish, and like yourself, I mean, I've never seen them before. I mean, I know, me too. I've seen like live clips and gigs on YouTube and stuff like that. And next time they come round, we have to go and see them because, but they're fantastic. I mean, it's like this new sort of, not a new breed, but it's like it's just really fantastic music what they're doing, and it covers a lot of bases, and it's nice because Poland, I mean, there's so much going on there, like, all coming out of there, which is fantastic. And, because obviously when people think of Poland, they think, straight away of Behemoth, and it's good that you got bands like, how do you pronounce their band? Mgła, yeah. And you've got to it's so great that, you got, and they're doing, stuff slightly different as well. And I think they're quite a unique kind of band.
Well, you know what I find very interesting about them as well is they have a relatively traditional black metal sound. They obviously don't look like traditional black metal band on stage. Their lyrics are actually very contemporary and actually very poetic. So, I mean, the track we're going to play, which is I think it is Age of Excuse 2. They've just kind of numbered all of the tracks on the album. But the lyric here, the stench of zeitgeist is the incense of discarded shrines, the opening 2 lines. I just think that's so poignant. It's especially relevant for the era now. But yes, again, what a record, and what a bunch of fucking badasses just dropping the album on YouTube. No kind of warning that it's coming, no build up, no nothing, just like albums on YouTube,
Yeah, that's a really cool thing.
Do what you want.
That's like, it's like, there you go, have some of this, just take some of that, and it's great. And like you said about the lyrics, it's like very fitting about how the world is going at the moment. Really good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so off of Age of Excuse, this is Age of Excuse 2 by Mgła. By the way, the only reason I know how to pronounce Mgła, I have a girl who works for me who's from Poland, and I played it to her, and I was like, this is the pride of your nation, surely. She's like, no, it's not. But by the way, Jackie, you don't say Mgła, you say Mgła. It's like, apparently it means fog. So anyway, here we go. Mgła, my 7th best record of 2019. Cattle Decapitation, Death Atlas, my number 6 pick.
Right.
What a fucking beast of a record. But how bizarre that so many people seem to get off on running this down. I've seen so many reviews calling it shit, saying the band is boring. Then, they've moved away from their gore grind or their death grind roots. It's like, I don't see you guys fucking queuing up to listen to it when they were a death grind band.
Yeah.
They were literally... I remember when I first found out about the band, I can't remember a single review that they got that was beyond a 50%. They were a joke to most people. And then all of a sudden, I can't remember whether it was Humanure that kind of started it, but Humanure was the album that I first kind of started taking notice of. And then there's this steady progression on every single album after that. And then finally you've got Death Atlas, which is kind of this death grind black metal hybrid. And it's just fantastic. This is like the album that Cattle Decapitation really always should have made. Yeah,
I mean that album is just completely fucking mental from start to finish, and it's and all these arseholes online or whoever like just slagging it off. I'm thinking, there's no need for that, and it's like it's a bloody beast of an album. What more do you want from an extreme metal band?
Yeah,
and. It's like I totally agree with what you're saying. Like the how do you say it? From the beginning up until now, it's like they've veered their way towards making this, and for me, that's probably my favorite.
I agree. I think Anthropocene Extinction is a fantastic record, but I feel like this record just topped it. I think it just had a slight edge over it. And, I know people are complaining about the lack of groove. I think there's plenty of groove. What I really didn't understand was the fucking comparisons to Cradle of Filth. What? I mean, Jesus Christ, do these people, have they ever heard of Cradle of Filth album? I just think it's because of the, it's because Travis uses his high pitch quite a lot, but.
Wow, that's a strange comparison there.
Yeah. I think it's nuts. Anyway, right, off of Death Atlas, this is a song called The Geocide. Number 5, Wyrd, Ghosts Invited. I will issue right now an open invitation to Gaahl if he ever wants to come on the show. I have actually interviewed him once before. I don't think he was in a particularly good mood because the interview didn't go well. It was one of those where back in the day when I was still transcribing, I kind of listened to it and it was like, you know what? It's going to look a bit weird, these 2-3 sentences of mine trying to get the conversation going and then literally like, yes, no. It's like,
one of those interviews.
Yeah, no, he wasn't particularly talkative. I get it because I interviewed him around the time that the real, remember the big Gorgoroth controversy with the fucking all that shit that happened in Poland. It was right in the middle of that, and I actually purposely didn't talk much about that. But I think by the time that he and I spoke, he was probably so sick of hearing about it. Or he was just kind of expecting the question. So how does it feel to be criticized for your religious beliefs? Anyway, I have to say, firstly, about Wyrd, I did not. This was not the record I was expecting. I think stupidly, I was probably expecting something to sound a little bit like maybe Trelldom or Gorgoroth or Godseed. It's not that at all. And so therefore it takes you a couple of listens to really get your head around it. And then when you get your head around it, you're like, Jesus, this is a good record.
Yeah.
And it's like, even now I'll still pick out spots where it's like, maybe a particular sequence hasn't quite sort of hit me as hard as it should. It's a masterpiece. I mean, and it tells you how great 2019 has been when this is my number 5 pick of the year, and when in any other year this would be number 1.
Well, I mean, this album, I mean, it's another good one from start to finish. I mean, there's so much going on. Like, the variation of styles on this is, it's brilliant. I like the production as well on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, it's like it's one of those albums where like each song has got its own production. That sounds really weird thing to say, but it's got that, so much going on in there. But as a whole, a stunning album.
I feel like he took the same approach to making the album that he takes to making wine, because it's like every single song feels like it was crafted to be something all on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's because every single song has a very, very different feel to it. It has there's nothing about the record. There is a consistency about the record in that it feels like it's well sequenced, and it all feels like it's part of the same record. But you know what I mean? It's not like one track just flows into the next. It's like every song is a chapter, and when the chapter is closed, it's closed. It's like an anthology all of its own. Like I said, I thought it was just incredible. So I'm going to play my favorite track off the album, Carving the Mountain. In fact, I might need to just double check that track listing. But by the way, did you see Wyrd on the last Gorgoroth tour that they came through town on?
No, not the last one. I saw
not Gorgoroth, sorry, on Mayhem. They came through with Mayhem.
Oh no, I wasn't at that one. No, were you there or?
No, I'm fucking pissed off that I wasn't there. Anyway, you know what? I will correct it in postscript if I have to. This song is called "Carving the Mountain" off of Wyrd, my number 5 album of the year, and I think that makes it either 3 or 4 as a matter. 4 records that Season of Mist have on my top 20 of this year. So not bad running for them. Hey everyone, it's Jackie. I'm just cutting in there for a second. That song is not called Carving the Mountain. It's called Carving the Voices. My apologies. As I said, when you reach a certain age, things like song titles don't stick in the memory quite like they used to. So I hope that you are enjoying the show so far. I know you're going to enjoy this song, so back to it.
and the chasing of shadows, the return, and the chasing of light. On this mountain of romance and time, out from this rock, cargoments and the return, and the chasing of shadows, the return, and I change into light upon this mountain, carved out of dreams, upon this rock, carved out from my sleep.
Okay, up next, number 4, Panzerfaust, Sons of Perdition. I think that for the full title of the album is War, Sons of Perdition, War, O Horrid War. Panzerfaust, I thought were a band who were always very good, but they never quite, for whatever reason, they were one of those bands you'd listen to, you'd go, yeah, this is great, and then you don't really pay all that much attention to it again. And then Sons of Perdition came out, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, I know this is technically only an EP, so this, theoretically shouldn't be on here, but it has gone on by virtue of the fact that Metal Encyclopedia calls it a full length album, so it's on.
Right,
and
there you go.
It's like, I have spoken about this before. I myself am extremely interested in war, particularly the First and Second World Wars. So the kind of vibe I get on this record is it's very similar to Nile Nathrak's last album, in that there's no glorification of it, there's no kind of celebration, but there's not even really a critique of it. There's just more an observation. It's like this is what happens when people when bloodlust and hate and rage and anger overcome people to such a point that human life becomes completely dispensable. And they captured that feeling of anger. I mean, like whenever you watch any World War II or World War I documentary, you often go like, how the fuck do people get like this?
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, every single person, Jordan Peterson said this, and I completely agree. He said one of the most frightening things to realize is that anyone can become like this in the right circumstances. He said, like, do you think that the German people were just, bloodthirsty monsters running around ready for somebody to kill? It's like, no, they were conditioned over time to get to that point. Same with the Japanese, but equally there were atrocities committed by the Allied soldiers as well. So the Soviets were allies for a lengthy period of time. And, we all know what they did after they stormed Berlin. Yeah. But it's like, I feel like this record captures those feelings in a way that's almost indescribable, because they capture it on such a deep and visceral level. I know they say this is chapter 1. I know they've already announced on Facebook that I think chapter 2 might be on its way next year.
Right.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, with Panzerfaust, the one thing I wrote was top atmosphere all round.
Yeah.
Because the thing I got from it was, it's like it really grips you.
Yes.
It really sort of like when you're listening to it, it's like, it's like it's got so much the atmosphere, like it's all over the place in terms of like it goes up and down and it's like mood swings, But it's a very, very good, very good album. It's one of those where I'd stick that on when I'm chilling in my room and just put it on and just let it breathe. You know what I mean? That kind of album, And
I think, and I agree with you. It's definitely a chill out record, but it's a chill out record for people that think that watching, Apocalypse First World War or World War II in color or something like that. That's a nice night in.
Yeah, have a cup of tea and all that.
Okay, and on we move. Number 3. I reviewed this on the episode upon which you featured, Nile, Vile Nilotic Rites. I said at the time, and I'm going to repeat it, I massively wouldn't say underrated. I overlooked this album. It wasn't an album that I was hugely anticipating as much, and I don't know why, because I really like Nile, but for some reason I just wasn't massively excited about it.
Yeah.
And then when the album came out, I listened to the first single. I don't think that it helped that the first single had come out at the same time as the new Cattle Decapitation. That Cattle Decapitation single, I think purely by virtue of how much was going on, probably captured me more. But then when I started really getting into the Nile album, I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the magic of this record is it's everything great that you love about Nile with the dials turned way up. And I think Brian, the new guitarist and the new vocalist, I just think he does a fucking amazing job. And his contribution to the riff writing, I think, is evident because you can hear a lot of riffs that are a bit of a departure from Cole's typical riff style, but it suits the band perfectly. It adds a lot of variation. Again, very hard album to fault. Production is superb. Everything about it is just totally up my street and exactly the album that Nile needed to make in 2019.
No, definitely. I think it's like, it's funny when, every time Nile release an album, there's a lot of people that go, another Nile album, because of the, they've got their own style, obviously, because, obviously, roughly what you're going to get. But
yeah,
the thing is with this one, and, it's like, when it's coming, you think, okay, there's another Nile album coming out. But every time they release an album and I put it on and I listen to it, it's like, fuck me, it's like, it just hits you like a ton of bricks. And that's what I love about it. Like you said very well, it was like so much bloody going on. And, I just think to myself, how the hell, when recording that must have, been a bloody, load of hard work there. But it's fantastic. The production is really, really good on this album. I mean, everything is crystal clear. You can hear everything, what's going on. And the lineup, I think, I was lucky enough to see that lineup, was it maybe a year ago? I think it was like part 3 of the last album cycle when they were touring it.
I think they played at the Dome with that lineup.
That's right, yes. And there was, I think it was Brad, the bassist vocalist, and Brian, I think, as you said, was the guitarist. And triple vocal attack, great. It just rips your head off, from start to finish. And yeah, I can't praise this album enough because it's just fantastic. So audible, so clear, and they're top of their game.
I don't know whether you're interested in the audiophile game at all, but I'm a fucking nut for it. So I've listened to this record on a hi-fi system that at a shop that my friend and I frequent. I think in total with cables and everything, it's about $125,000.
Right. Okay.
It sounds it literally it's and this is kind of a testament to the production of the record. It sounds so massive, and there is so much going on that you don't necessarily hear if you're just listening to it on shitty fucking iPhone headphones.
Yeah.
It just grabs you by the gut and just keeps on yanking. It really is fantastic. So I'm going to play the most amusingly titled track on the record, and they are no strangers to amusing titles. But this is Snake Pit Mating Frenzy.
Brilliant.
Sinuous coil
right, number 2, Mayhem Demon. I was massively debating my number 1 and 2 choice. I'm probably always going to be massively debating my number 1 and 2 choice. But I don't really give a shit because, the numbers are kind of fun. But at the end of the day, will I still be listening to this album in 10 years from now? Fucking most definitely. I'm a big fan of some of the later Mayhem stuff, Ordo ad Chaos and Esoteric Warfare. And I was really worried that they would move away from a lot of that experimental stuff and kind of go back to something more straightforward and raw. They did go back to their roots a bit on this album, but I think there's still enough going on from an experimental perspective here that the album is really varied. The songs sound distinct. The atmosphere is really thick and dense, it's really, really cool to see the band doing or getting the level of credit that they're getting now. Kind of especially in the wake of the whole Lords of Chaos thing. I personally thought Lords of Chaos was a fucking bucket of bullshit, and I was worried that it would it would kind of draw attention to these bands in a way that wasn't necessarily the right kind of attention. So I feel like Mayhem going away and making a serious record for serious men and serious women was the right thing to do. I think it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think another straight to the point record. No messing about. Like you say, like a nod to the old school, but also variation as well, which is very nice, especially the riffing.
Yeah.
It's like, when Blasphemer was in the what's it called, like, he was the ex-guitarist, wasn't he? Blasphemer, I believe.
Yeah.
He had that sort of like kind of out there kind of riffing, and I believe this guy, I can't remember his name,
Telok.
Yeah, he's a bit of a riff meister as well. And
I can't remember whether I mentioned this to you or to somebody else, but I mean, Telok went out and he did Nadinger in 2017, which was incredible. And he also wrote most of Esoteric Warfare, from my understanding. I potentially stand corrected there, but as far as I know, he wrote most of Esoteric Warfare. And then he wrote this. The guy just doesn't seem to miss. He's just an absolute fucking animal as far as being able to churn out great riffs. He's quite special.
Yeah, no, he's got that kind of like, that sort of Piggy from Voivod kind of vibe as well, like with his riffs as well. He's got that going on as well, along with like let's say the classic metal kind of riffing, the black metal, but also on this album, the vocals fantastic. Really, like, all over the shop, and I love it,
So I personally think there are the two best black metal frontmen on the planet right now are Attila from Mayhem and Mortis from Marduk. And I'd say, actually, if you want to hear Mortis at his best, listen to Funeral Mist. But Attila on this record, to me, this is career best. He's one of those guys where immediately, as soon as he starts vocaling, you're listening to Attila. He can sound off out of his fucking mind when he's vocaling. And then on this album, he does some of the singing and he does a bunch of other stuff. But also when you see him live, he's just so good. He's such a mesmerizing character to watch. I saw them at Incineration Fest in May. And for me, he just stole the show. I thought that just watching him and watching the rest of Mayhem on stage, I liked a lot of the other bands that I saw that day, but I was like, my girlfriend who doesn't, who's not into this music, she was like, these guys they are just so many cuts above everybody else. It's not even funny. And even someone who doesn't know the music can see that. Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, like his vocal range is fantastic, and he can switch from one to the other. Like, it's like, and that's really good. I mean, and plus, again, it's extra layers and, of everything, and it just makes everything, it makes the music shine more, and that's one thing that stood out a lot was the vocals. I mean, obviously, and the riffing, but in general, like, the production's really, really good. Another one where it's got that's got a bit of a coldish kind of vibe as well, but a fresh kind of vibe as well.
Yeah.
sort of modern.
I also I like how high they brought up Necro Butcher's bass into the mix. He's got this, he's playing kind of a distorted bass. His bass sound reminds me a little bit of Shane from Napalm Death.
Yeah.
But there's like a real kind of like sort of dense bass sound, but at the same time you hear every time he hits a note. But I mean, he's such a fucking cool dude and such a badass as well. He's another guy I would absolutely love to have on the show. I have reached out to Gaahl, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to record an episode with him in the beginning of the year. He's a dude that just fascinates me. Like he, this muscled up fucking Hulk standing on stage. he cuts such a great and imposing figure on stage as well. And I just generally think he'd be an interesting dude to talk about. I think all of these guys, because what I love about Mayhem so much is they're in a weird way, they kind of remind me of Akrakoka in the sense that I always felt, and I don't know how I'm going to say this in a way that doesn't sound pompous or pretentious or anything, but I don't mean it in that way. I always felt like what I loved about Akrakoka, especially with the suits and stuff like that, and that's why I like that they still do it for voices and for Antichrist Imperium. They just presented themselves in a way that was like, we're not part of the fucking riffraff bullshit scene. Mm-hmm. There's like, we're almost like a scene by ourselves.
Yeah.
Like the way that Mayhem present themselves, the way they come across, the way they are in interviews, there is a removal away from, the stage thing, but in a way that makes them on stage that much more effective because it's what you expect. They're these mild-mannered, generally very well-dressed, well-presented guys off stage, and they get on stage and it's all hell breaks loose. They're like the black metal version of Rammstein. So.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, we can talk about this all night. But I'm going to play a track called Demon Spawn. This is off the album Demon by Mayhem, and it's my number 2 record of 2019.
Oh!
And we have come to number one, my favorite album of 2019. Again, like I said, it was very, very difficult to pick out of this lineup. I will say, in the interest of transparency, there's a level of sentiment behind my selection as well. One of the main creators of the record is also the first guy I ever interviewed for Into the Necrosphere, and their music provides the soundtrack to Into the Necrosphere. So actually, this shouldn't have been in the top 20 at all. They've I put them on here as a favor for them letting me use their music. No, I'm just bullshitting. Stellar Master Elite, Hologram Temple. I love the music of Red Harvest, and I always felt like the world was sorely lacking a band like them. You know, a band that kind of combined that industrial, bludgeoning, kind of almost Godflesh kind of brutality with the coldness of metal. And then along come these dudes. I heard them on Black Metal Promotion, and I was just instantly gripped. The more I've listened to this album, the more I've loved it. It's something that every time I go back to, I like even more.
Yeah.
There is so much to discover on this album. Like, you can listen to this album 100 times. You will always hear new stuff. And again, much like AV and Abduction, when I spoke to Marco, and I've since, become pretty good friends with him, he still seems to not quite get how good this record is. Like, it's almost like he's amazed. He's like almost slightly taken aback when you give him a compliment. It's like, you know, when you pay a girl a compliment and she's not used to receiving compliments. And she's kind of like, you know, what do you want from me? He's almost like that. And it's like, dude, this like what you guys have made here, if you didn't decide to go the unholy deathwork conspiracy route and release everything by yourself, I am 100% sure in the hands of Season of Mist or Century Media or a bigger label, this would be fucking enormous.
Yeah,
this really would be huge. And I know part of it as well. I know Marco doesn't want a tour. So that might also be a factor, but you know, this band could be absolutely massive. I think it is sensational.
Yeah, no, I think that was again another great album with an amazingly cool atmosphere. There's one song that I picked out was called "Beast," the beast we have created, and that, especially when you have that, they put those sort of layers of I don't know if it's synths or other sort of extra sounds over it. And but yeah, in general, it's, you know, really, really good, heavy, mid-paced kind of metal that I liked on it. And yeah, it's a bit of a good job there. You know, I mean, it's one thing that I want to give it, you know, a few more listens, but I think,
dude, if you ever swing around my neck of the woods, I'll play to you I'll play particularly the last track through a subwoofer that can push out about 1200 watts. You will see shit move around in the room like something out of Poltergeist. And I know why. Apparently, the synths they used like analog synths from the I don't know where the fuck they got it, but Marco was mentioning to me they used like analog only synths, which gives it that really like weighty feeling. But I mean, that's another thing. The production on this album, considering the fact that it's self-produced, it's fucking mind-boggling. It is so good. You know, and again, as much as I know they'll never tour, if the world wants to grant me a great 40th birthday wish, Red Harvest, Stellar Master Elite on tour with Rammstein would make me happy.
I remember, you know, it's funny. Red Harvest is a band that I haven't heard the name for such a long time. I used to like them, especially the early stuff.
Oh, dude, I'm such a big fan of that band. I thought that they were to me one of those bands that never made a misstep. But if I ever did my top 50 bands of all time special, they'd be in my top 5 easily.
What was the album called that was like a red cover? I remember. That's all I remember of it. Was like a red cover, Red Harvest.
So they had a couple that had reddish covers. I think I know what you're talking about, though. Bear with me 10 seconds. If I'm going to look it up on my phone, and I'm 100% sure I'm going to find it. It's their first album. It's the one that was just remastered as well.
Oh right, okay. Because I remember, it was the first two I thought were fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you now. So it's not Cold Dark Matter. which Cold Dark Matter is in my opinion amazing. Oh no, actually no, I know what you're talking about, and it's not the one I was thinking about. Hybrid. It is Internal Punishment Programs.
Right.
Came out in 2004. Yeah, great album. I mean,
they were quite a unique band, definitely.
It's got some of the gnarliest fucking breakdowns as well. They were one of those bands that could they could do almost like a black metal riff and then have a Ministry riff and then have a hardcore breakdown, and it would just all sound like the same band.
Yeah, it's they would just mix it all up, and it wouldn't sound like anything separate from each other. It'd just be like one lovely thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Awesome. So we will stick then with the track that you selected, The Beast That We Have Created, my favorite album of 2019, Hologram Temple by Stellar Master Elite. I know that it is an honor they will cherish for the rest of their lives, having been selected on this podcast as the greatest musicians of 2019. But here we go. The Beast We Have Created. right, dude. So that wraps it up. Thank you again so much for coming on the show.
No problem.
It has been a pleasure to have you on as always. And hopefully we're gonna be talking about your album next year in the best of 2020 list.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me back, and it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat and discussing music. Which I'm sure we could talk about for many days on end. But yeah, thank you very much. It's been great, and great list, by the way. I've discovered a lot of new bands, so thanks for that.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you again for your time, and wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon.
Absolutely. You too, mate. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, dude. Take care.
Nice one.
Bye-bye. There you go. My favorite albums of 2019 and my last show of the year. Thank you so much to Giuseppe for joining me for that really fun conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Like I said, I will be back on January the 7th with episode 16. Guest to be confirmed, but I do have a couple of really exciting names in the pipeline. So we're looking forward to sharing those with you. One of them might have been the member of a death metal band who I referenced at some point in the show. So I'll leave you guys to mull over who that could be. Anyway, to all of you, thank you so much again for the support. Have an awesome Christmas, however you are spending it. If you're spending it with friends, family, loved ones, my best wishes to you all. Stay safe. And from the mean streets of Surbiton on the outskirts of London, I am bidding you all a fond farewell.